Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor has called the meeting to order. Mayor Davey.
Here.
Councilmember Kaplan. Councilmember Laredo.
Here.
Vice Mayor London. Councilmember McCormick.
Here.
Councilmember Moss.
Can you hear them, Madam Clerk? Can you hear Brett and Ed and Frank?
I can't hear Councilmember Moss.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you, Ed.
I can hear Vice Mayor London. I can't hear Councilmember Moss.
And can you hear?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can hear you.
And Councilmember Kaplan, could you speak again?
I can't hear.
No, I can't hear him either. No. Let's get through the other two. We still have two other council members out there we have to roll call for.
Okay, Councilmember Moss, I could hear. Councilmember Segurola.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we do have a quorum. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item, Mr. Mayor, is brief comments by council.
Okay. You know, I think we've had a couple of conversations, well, last meeting actually, about people breaking the law, and the police are going to start pushing for some more enforcement. We had an incident last week at the Key Biscayne Beach Club that I think was ridiculous and went far beyond just being a goofy prank into being a felony. So I want to, commend the police for doing what they're doing. And I just want the people to know we're working to find out who did it. And we're not going to stop until we find them. Anybody else have comments?
Nope. Are you hearing me now?
Yes, we are hearing you now, Frank.
Okay.
All right.
Can we get a report, Mr. Mayor, the next meeting on the police? Because this one incident after the other. There's also other concerns about.
Yeah, the dogs on the beach. I noticed your.
Also, an accident or some kids or whatever ran over a lady, and people are concerned about that. And what is the, the report from the police about who is responsible? And
So, sir, I can touch on that tonight. There's information out there that I can share, information that I cannot. However, I can make it very clear that that accident you're referring to and the felony involving the arson over at the beach club, those things are not only under investigation, but we have identified some people, and we are doing our due diligence right now, and there will be results to all of what we're dealing with right now.
okay.
Mike, if I could have a brief comment.
Mike is muted, I think.
Oh, I might just jump in then. I want to echo the mayor and Councilmember Laredo's concerns and really want to just share my voice in this same line that we have a serious problem here. And last week, Wednesday night was the beach club. Thursday night, I saw a resident in his driveway just had Amazon packages stolen off his front porch by kids. And then Friday night was the accident. And it's just completely out of hand. And so while I'm anxious to hear what the chief has to say, I was surprised when I had a conversation with a resident that they were, luckily for them, unaware of how bad this situation had gotten. And so just to let the residents know that we are aware of this problem. We've obviously had a conversation about it as a collective body of 7, and that this problem must be and will be dealt with. And that's my comments.
Can you all hear me?
Yep. Yes.
All right, good. Thank you. I touched the wrong button. Anybody else, or can we move on? All right. Next item is.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is public comments.
Okay, go ahead. Pete, if you want to do your role.
All right, ladies and gentlemen that are currently watching the meeting on Channel 77, Channel 99, or streaming it live via our website, if you wish to speak, please dial the phone number of 305-365-7569, and the meeting ID will be 231-627-8415. For those of you currently logged in and you wish to speak, please dial *9 or raise your hand in the application to be heard.
And please remember, if you are a hired consultant or village employee and or if engaged in lobbying activities and or representing an organization, please state you are doing so for the record.
Mr. Mayor, I do have CC Sanchez wishing to speak.
Please. 3 minutes, Ceci.
Everyone to be aware.
Please, Ceci, please state your name and for the record, name and address for the record.
Ceci Sanchez or Cecile Sanchez, 260 Cypress Drive, Key Biscayne.
Thank you.
I am very concerned, and I would like everyone to be very well aware of the impact to the village of Key Biscayne of pending and house sales. From the last 6 months, we've had 51 houses sold, and there are 14 pending sales. I would like you to understand that this might be great news for real estate agents and for the village property taxes, but for us residents, it would always probably mean more residents and traffic, more school students, a more crowded community center in Plainfields, less parking at shopping centers, churches, grocery stores, and a boom in construction. I urge you, please, to place a top priority on courtesy protocols to adjacent neighbors and protecting the disappearing tree canopy by creating our very own village landscaping code and secede from Deputy Durham. We should follow our own. We have been begging, requesting this for many years, and it's due that the village should have its own landscaping code, and we here in the village control what can be demolished, what can be uprooted, pay a fee, and that all stays in the village. Please, please consider also the neighbors with all the construction that I am sure will start happening soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Mr. Mayor, nobody else has signed up to speak.
Okay. Let's go on to the next item. Oh,
the next item, Mr. Mayor, is the agenda approvals, deferrals, additions, deletions, substitutions, withdrawals.
Okay. Do we have anybody with additions, deletions, substitutions, or withdrawals? Councilmember Segurola, you're recognized.
Yes, there's two things I would request. Number one, if we can defer the issue of the ordinance for the irrigation ordinance. I have not had an opportunity to sit down and speak with the condominiums at length about their impact. We did have a Zoom meeting with Dr. Samimi some time ago. I believe there's a second meeting, but I was not able to attend that one. But before we move forward, I'd like to speak to the larger properties that would be affected by this. And number two, I would ask that item 7B be pulled from the consent agenda for discussion.
7B to be pulled?
Yeah,
so
which is the...
you want to defer, just to be clear, you want to defer 8B?
8B, yes, correct.
8B, and then pull 7B? 7A or 7B?
I'm sorry, 7B, yes.
Does pull mean pull or defer?
No, pull so we can discuss. Pull for discussion. Okay. Anybody else want to add or I mean, I guess on the irrigation, I've been speaking to the larger condominiums. Most of their issues have been addressed, frankly. I know, Dr. Samimi's been working on this for quite a while. I feel like, I want to know how everybody else feels on this one. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to, Councilmember Moss, you're recognized?
Oh, I was just going to talk about that item. I don't mind deferring it. I think it's something that is already the current code in the county, and it really doesn't matter to me if we push this down one more, if he needs a little bit more time to review it. So I'm okay with deferring that item.
Extend the courtesy to Cigarrola and pull it.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any deferrals or additions, deletions?
Yes, I do.
Councilmember Laredo, you're recognized.
One is just to make it in one item, my village board's item to consolidate 9A with that item, which would be 11B2, so that we can have.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that would have been a natural progression. You're absolutely right. So 9A and 11B2.
And just for a discussion, if we have time, to discuss the property in the entry block.
So you want to add that as 11B3?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 11B3 entry block. Okay. Anybody else have any items to add or delete?
I wanted to keep the consent agenda with the exception of the item that Ignacio would like to pull as a consent agenda, but I had 2 points of inquiry, maybe.
Excuse me. He pulled one and he deferred the other.
No, he pulled one item off the consent agenda, but the other items on the consent agenda are left on the consent agenda. I think we can do that when it comes up for, when we move the consent agenda, we can have a discussion on those items. Let's do that.
Okay, that's fine.
Let's keep that. This is just additions, deletions, deferrals. All right.
Well, move the consent agenda.
I'm sorry?
I moved the consent agenda.
No, hold on.
1 second.
Everybody lighten up for a second. We've got a little reverb here. We'll get to we can have the discussion when it's been moved, when the consent agenda has been moved.
The procedural glitch, if you will, is if we feel that the 2 points that I will raise as questions, as points of inquiry, require these items to be pulled from the consent agenda, I fear it'll be too late to do that.
Okay. Everybody okay?
No, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case. Set the agenda, and then when you come to the consent agenda, if Councilman Kaplan wants to make his inquiries before the vote, that's fine.
Okay. They're inquiries, that's fine.
Okay, fine. Let's move along. Anybody else with additions, deletions, deferrals? Okay, let's. I call the question.
All those in favor of the agenda changes?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move the consent agenda.
I'll second it. Councilmember Kaplan, you had some inquiries? I was the second.
Thank you.
My question first of all, on the minutes, the item that dealt with the so-called civility procedures resolution, Luis had made a language suggestion that's written in the minutes as a consensus verbatim approval. And I don't think that's what happened. I think we left it to the attorney to draft for the point that Luis had mentioned. And if you all agree with that, it's just not correctly worded in the minutes.
I would agree with that. Yeah, the attorney was going to come back with language.
So we can approve with that amendment?
Yeah, what I did is, on that item, I guess that's my statement, but it's not the attorney's. You're right. We said for him to.
Right. He would come back to us.
And also, before we get to that, just grammatically, since we interrupted that item to let the county commissioner speak, there has to be a little line there just to get back to. Otherwise, it doesn't read well.
Yeah, that's right.
Where is this, Council Member Laredo? I'm sorry.
After he says the consensus of the council to remove the resolution from the table, so that we would listen to Regalado.
Right.
And then we go right into the item. You need to sort of say we go back to the item,
Oh, yes, I see. Thank you.
just grammatically.
Okay. All right. And that's, yeah, so just if the consensus was to have the attorney come back and address Councilmember Laredo's concerns.
Right.
I think that's a fair way to put that. Okay.
All right, and then my other point is a question pretty much for Chad, having to do with tab 3 in the agreement itself, where it comes time to recite who's paying what for what. This is an insurance settlement, I believe, and it should reflect that. I think this doesn't. It's the second whereas in the recitals. No, I'm sorry. It's It's section 2A.
Right, 2B. Oh, a village shall pay. You're right. The village. So rather than the village, it should be the village's insurance.
Chad, I think that's right.
It says in section. Well, I'm sorry.
Village,
which are you referring? I'm sorry, Frank. Which document are you referring to? The settlement agreement itself.
General release.
The settlement agreement itself. The reso's fine. It's the agreement that caused me.
Okay. Yeah, we can. That's fine. Let me check. I don't know how they, if the funds come to us and we pay or whichever way, but we'll confirm that. That's fine.
I would assume it would go straight from. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's
Clarify
it.
That.
That's
Okay.
it.
Are we okay?
Approval, Mr. Kaplan, under section 2 of the resolution, it says that shall be paid by the village insurance.
Yeah, and it's the agreement itself that I was commenting on.
No, and it's good for the public to know.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
A very important point.
Correct. All right. Can we move on? Those everybody agree to the changes proposed? Those inquiries, line of inquiries on the minutes.
As amended, I move.
Okay. As amended.
Second, as amended.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm good. The next item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, confirming emergency expenditures relating to the novel coronavirus COVID-19, providing for ratification and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Who is the second?
Kaplan.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Manager. Well, I guess Councilmember Cigarelli, you had some questions about this?
Yeah, basically, I just had one observation and actually a second thing that I don't know if it sort of stems from the same observation. I don't know if it'd be better for, maybe I should have asked to have it added on as a discussion item later on. But with regard to what's in the first page of the memorandum, the testing on Key Biscayne, I think, has pretty much been a success, all the programs. However, given the fact that now, as Chief Press or Manager Press points out in the report, that now we have a partnership with Curative Inc., which is a kiosk that can test up to 200 people a day for free to the village. Shouldn't it be time that we suspend the payment of the testing through the foundation and whatever testing program we have there? It seems like it's duplicative, and especially if one's free and one's costing the village, maybe we should come to an end of that. And well, and the other issue is not in the report, but similarly, with regard to costs, and tell me if this is too out of left field to be included in this discussion. I don't know the numbers, and I have not had a chance to ask Chief Press about them, but my observation is that the freebie has been running pretty empty given the coronavirus. And I'm wondering if there's any way we can scale back that operation temporarily to save some money for the village on that one too. So those are my 2 points with regard to the ongoing expenses in this coronavirus time.
I am confused about this, Mayor, because I thought we were moving, and I know that the Chief of Fire and Rescue made a proposal, but on the vaccination, which is where we're really moving. Testing is available just about everywhere now.
Well, Mr. Manager, if you would speak to that.
And then, Mike, if I could, I had my hand up after. I'd like to hear what Chief Press has to say about the testing, but then I'd like to respond to the freebie.
Yeah, I think I'll back you up on the freebie. I'm not sure what you're going to say, but I have a feeling we're similarly aligned on that one.
I don't know.
Maybe not. Mr. Manager?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you for this opportunity. Regarding the testing, we really hadn't taken that hard look at it. Obviously, testing has dwindled down as people are focusing more on receiving the vaccine. And now that we do have not only one, but 2 curative sites on the key, I will reach out to Melissa White and talk to the foundation and ensure that we take advantage of what's in the best interest of Key Biscayne, not only for our citizens, but budgetary wise, and be able to get back to council by the February 9th meeting.
Okay. Councilmember McCormick? You're muted.
I had a hard time getting that. I appreciate Ignacio's observation about the freebie. And I think included in this discussion, we should look at how much of the funds are Key Biscayne funds. And because my understanding is that we use some transportation money for that. And I wonder if it isn't before we scale it back, I wonder if maybe isn't worth looking, Ignacio, at talking to some of the stores and restaurants and the Chamber of Commerce, and perhaps some sort of a hybrid situation of going back to like we did in the initial lockdown, where we used freebie to try to support local businesses. I wonder if they're running around empty, maybe they should be running around helping deliver things. I don't know if that's appropriate, but I wonder if it's worth looking at.
Dr. Samimi, you had a comment. I know we've been working on some stuff, but go ahead.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of conversations with freebie over the last couple of weeks, and in truth, the numbers that they're seeing are almost approaching the ridership of post-pandemic. They're still doing the deliveries. They're still abiding by the COVID-19 safety protocols, but there's more demand there than you might believe. And I say that just based on the numbers that they've been giving me. And in truth, I've also been talking to Benjamin, and right now we have a significant CITT surplus of funds for transit that we need to expend, obviously thoughtfully, effectively, or return back to the county. And it's on the order of $700 and some odd thousand that we have to expend over the next 3 years. And we're actually trying to expand freebie and actually boost the ridership and boost the number of vehicles. And we're also trying to address people's interests in getting to places that right now aren't covered by freebie, such as Bill Bags and possibly even Clinton Park. So with that said, my personal opinion is that rather than we ratchet it back, we should actually ratchet it up. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we've been talking about the Bill Bags issue, trying to get service. That's up before the county commission as one of their committees on transportation is meeting on February 9th. And our commissioner, Raquel Regalado, is actually putting forth a change to the law that may allow us. Right now, we're precluded from offering services into Bill Bags. I also, at some point, would like to come back to the council and discuss utilizing freebie a la Jim Tainter, if you will, as sort of, we talked about a trolley service a number of years ago. And I think we could talk about maybe removing county buses from Harbor Drive, not from Crandon, but from Harbor Drive, and utilizing the freebies to provide that service, because there is a reduced need for buses down Harbor, but there is a need for people to get down Harbor on mass transit. And I think it would do much to protect the neighborhood in terms of, having buses go 30 miles an hour barreling down down that street. But at the same time, provide the service that we should be providing to our residents.
To that point, I've also reached out to CITT on that specifically, and they've given me the point of contact that I need to speak to within the county to address that specific point.
Right. Councilmember London, you had your, Vice Mayor, you had your hand up?
Yes, I did. You're muted.
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Talking about the foundation and the testing, I was under the impression that if you use the foundation testing, it was $85. I did not believe that we were supposed to be paying anything. Right. I thought the patient or the client paid the $85. I also have to tell you another situation which just happened. My wife just got a bill for $182, and that was the balance. She made the mistake of going to Baptist outpatient. Baptist outpatient charges $750 for the same test. They collect $500 and some from the insurance company, and they wind up billing you $180 some. I mean, just gives you an idea how out of whack our healthcare system is, when we can pay one provider $85, they make a nice profit, and the other one we have to pay $700 and some. So warning everybody, if you don't have insurance that covers 100%, or if you don't want to waste the government's money, do not go to Baptist. It costs $700 and some for a test.
Mr. Manager, I see you wanted to jump in, and then Councilmember Cigarrola, and then Councilmember McCormick.
Vice Mayor, in response to that and to all the council tonight, I'll be able to provide figures at the next council meeting during my report, and let you all know exactly where we stand, what costs are, and I think it'll give you all a better snapshot to be able to make the decision that you feel is in the best interest of our citizens.
Thank you. Councilmember Cigarrola?
That's actually exactly what I was going to ask for. Chief Press, if you can give us numbers on the testing and on the freebie, so we can discuss it at the next meeting.
Sure, great. Councilmember McCormick, and then Councilmember Moss.
I had, in the course of this conversation, gotten some data on testing, but I think we should wait until we have a full report from the chief. So
perfect.
I don't know what to say.
Councilmember Moss?
No, I just, what London said, I just want to be clear, we're not paying anything for the testing that the foundation is doing, correct?
That's what my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that we got rid of that a long time ago.
No, the village just gives the space.
Just the space, that's it.
And the alternative, the reason people like it, apparently, is because it is the alternative where they do not have to get out of their cars.
Yes.
Unlike
That's what we've been trying to do, provide a service and give them every opportunity they have to receive the testing in any way, shape, or form. But the Vice Mayor has a really great point, no disrespect to Baptist, but I'll provide the numbers for you all and let you all just talk about it, make whatever decisions you wish.
But my question to that is, what numbers are you providing if we're not paying for any of this? Is this just a waste of Chuck's time to go and put this stuff together? I mean,
well, there's been an inquiry from a councilman. There's been an inquiry from a council member who wants to know what if this is. I mean, it's a legitimate. Let's see what he comes back with.
Chief, if you could also include
so we can provide them to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chief, if you could also include in that just some information from the community center on if they feel that it's impacting their facility, like their parking, because I mean, I haven't heard complaints, but that would be an important thing to know for me.
Thank you. All right.
Can I?
Absolutely. Councilmember Laredo, I'm sorry. You're.
Oh, no, it's okay. I think you're right about not making work for the manager, but can we say it in plain English so that everybody's listening, that the vaccinations that are being given,
the tests
are not costing the village taxpayers a cent.
Right. Okay.
So everybody's clear. And number two, as you look at the freebie statistics and all of that, I think your suggestion is excellent. As you know, I'm very militant, even though I don't live in the homes, to keep bicycles and buses and people into the residential area. That idea of the freebies being the feeder to the bus service, which also will help us with maintaining our roads and particularly our circle, is an excellent idea. Let's see if we can implement it. That would be very useful.
Yeah, agreed.
Also would enhance our safety.
And that's a huge issue for residents on Harbor.
Commend you for it.
And protection of the median.
Right. I mean, no, to his point about, maintenance, it's everything. And it was actually a resident who brought forward, who reminded me of what Jim Tainer had wanted to do a number of years ago. So I think it works. All right. Anybody, Councilmember Cigarrola, are you satisfied, or can we vote on the item?
Yes.
Okay.
This is on 7B. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, extending the term of the 2040 Strategic Vision Plan Board from January 15th, 2020 through January 15th, 2022, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Moved. Second.
Vice Mayor London, second. Thank you.
Councilmember Laredo, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, if you recall, when we first got elected, beginning of 19, we actually had a whole day of workshop that with a lot of work that went into it to systemize and to make our boards consistent and clean up some, just basic cleanup. And some decisions were made there, including the size of each board being 7. The spirit of the charter, it's sort of a joint appointment made by the mayor after he considers, some recommendations that the council members as elected officials can give him, and then approve them. So I don't see why we make certain rules to make more rational management, and then we wind up doing a whole bunch of exceptions. I think this board, which is an important board, should be 7, just like everybody else. And also we pretty much everybody, not on this one because there's who have still not expired terms, but there are other boards that we really need to, almost all of them, we need to sit down between now and the next 2 meetings and give you some names and replace people. There's a lot of people who want to serve and there's no place for them. You probably have the same problem. And some people have been there a long time. Some are active, some not so active. So what my suggestion, which had come before this, which is we should legitimize it. First of all, because it's a major fault of ours that this board technically expired without us knowing it. That is not good practice from management. Was not our fault. They should have alerted to that because, they have had to actually even engage on contracting. And it's not nice to do that to them. So I propose that we reinstitute it, but we consider bringing it to compliance with the 7 and then suggest to you, I think there are 5 vacancies or I think there are 3 people that are on and then give you some suggestions to fill up to 7. But I feel I'm trying to find uniformity. And there isn't any compelling reason why we should continue to set rules and standards and then find a way to go around it.
Councilmember or Vice Mayor London and then Councilmember Cigarrola.
I agree with Councilman Laredo, and I suggest we talk to the chairman or he comes back with a report to us of who he has, since they've been meeting, who has been attending the meetings, taking an active interest in participating, and give us that information so that Mike can make a proper selection of people, because there are, I'm sure, certain people out of the existing group that have been very active, participating, doing the diligence, and we really should consider extending them where others might not be participating as much.
Councilmember Cigarrola?
I agree with those 2 opinions. I'm for reinstituting it, but let's do it at 7. And let's have an analysis of who those 7 members should be, taking into account who technically is already off and if we can have some fresh blood in there too.
Councilmember Moss.
I think when we brought this board forward originally, I actually asked for 7 and ended up getting 11.
Okay.
But I would say that I agree with going down to 7. I think anybody would be, but the difficulty is that it is a very active group. There have been a lot of people who put a lot of time into it that might still want to be on it, but we got to make the difficult decisions and bring it down. I'm okay with that too. I believe that we made this board before we changed this down to 7, and it wasn't an exception that we made to the 7 that we had. I think that happened after we made the board,
right?
Because I believe the prior council put this. I'm not sure if the prior council. No, it wasn't. It was this council. Okay. But I think it was before we selected on the board. So,
right.
But again, as we get onto it, I think 7 is good. It's fine with me.
Councilmember McCormick, did you want to say something? Sorry, I wasn't sure.
I did, but everybody's pretty much already said everything that I have to say. I would like to echo Ed, though, that I think it's really important that we get some input from Lucho as the former chair now, whatever it is. And I also support reinstating it. I think it's possible that there are people who have their lives have changed, and we may be able to get down to 7 easily. But I think given
get the input.
They put a lot of work in, but the actual work is about to start. What they've all been dying to do, and some of that was on us dragging our feet. Some of it was on them wanting to wait and see what happened to make sure that they started the work. So I think it's in our best interest, and certainly the best interest of the village, to get the best work product, to take the advice from the chair. So I'm happy to wait for that.
Councilmember Kaplan. I'm sorry, Councilmember Kaplan, you're recognized.
I was interested in your collective thinking in getting to 7 as an optimal number on a committee. Was it your thought that it's simply a more manageable body at 7 than say 9 or some other number?
I think that, at the time, as I recollect, that was the thought process, to try and make some uniformity. But I think the 11 was because it is an enormous board. Its job is enormous. It's a big job, and we wanted more voices, as I recall, and this is my recollection, was that we wanted more voices to hear from more parts of the key, from more different segments of the population. I will tell you that I agree with Ed's approach the best, probably. I don't think uniformity for me would not be the reason to bring it down to 7. But if there are just 7 people who are involved, I think, to Councilmember McCormick's points, I think part of this has been a delay on our part. They didn't know what they were going to be working with. The general obligation bond was a big issue. And I think that held them up for a while. The people who have been involved have been committed to this. I don't want to go back and reinvent the wheel on this specific board. I do agree with Councilmember Laredo that we should be getting fresh blood into boards. But given what this one is tasked with, I would like to keep some continuity to allow them to at least move forward for another year. That would be my thought process. My first one would be to go to Councilmember De La Cruz, find out what he as chair has seen with the people showing up on a regular basis who are engaged, find out if there are people who want to get off. And if that brings us down to 7, then so be it.
Mayor?
But that would be my thought process. Councilmember Laredo, your thoughts?
To Mr. Kaplan's suggest, Frank, we spent a lot of time on this thing, to the point that we brought professional, we even had their own names. We used to call them committees, and the charter was called boards. There is what we did, it was a cleanup towards uniformity. Manageable number is an important issue, also reflective, without putting it in, because I don't believe in putting things in hard boxes, because then we don't have flexibility. That are 7 of us who represent the people. Each one of us had voted. And in a sense, some people would say each one of you deserve 1 member on each board. I don't go that far, because what he should have, the mayor, is my input and all of you, and from then pick with a view. This is a collegial body. This is not you versus us, that he would do the best he can to be representative within 7, but not married to 7. Because that discussion is, let's do 7 and 1 per council. Mm-hmm. So it was a matter of cleanup. It could have been another one. And and by the way, that's how it was proposed. I'm laughing because Moss is correct. It's because we were in one of those panic meetings late, and we had so many people, and sometimes we just kick the ball down the road and violating our own principles. And you know how I am about, the law is the law, you obey. So I think, notwithstanding the way how we get to 7 that we can discuss, I think we should pass today 7. If not, it's going to be making another exception. Something else, I like to talk about boards in general, but that would be, and I think even Moss doesn't have a problem with it. But it's a delicate problem that we created. I'm included, because actually I didn't have an appointment. I backed off my appointment because at that time there was a lot of tension and I didn't even appoint anybody. And so we need to get back to that. That's why I wanted to make it 7. Not this specific. I'm more concerned about getting, and was surprised and disappointed that the manager did not flag this that had expired, because they're in the middle of negotiating with service providers. But so I would support this if we bring it down to 7, and we'll decide with the consultations with the chairman and with you, Moss, how we get to that.
My understanding is we have the resolution before us is just to extend them through January 15, 2022. So that would be what's before us now, correct? This is not, correct. I mean, I think we have a subsequent conversation because we've melded the 2 items about committee and board sizes, but the issue of this resolution is just to extend to the 2022.
Board, but also the appointments though.
Well, the appointments, I think, are going to have to come once we hear from Councilmember De La Cruz. And here, to Ed's point, at the next meeting, we'll have him come back with, okay, these are the people who've been engaged. These seats, these people don't want to continue. And let's figure out where we are there.
Why don't we defer then until he gives us that information?
Well, but we need to continue the board. This doesn't establish the number here. We're going to have that conversation at a subsequent one, but I would like to have them, are we in agreement that we want this board to continue?
I am.
I certainly am. So, all right, let's have the vote on that resolution. Then let's go back to the conversation item that we brought into this.
But this resolution does not have the extension of the terms, is what I'm saying.
It just has a resolution. No, it has nothing about the terms. It only has to do with the time.
All right.
This resolution.
It only renews the board. It doesn't deal with any of the board appointments.
Correct. It has nothing to do with the board appointments.
I would at least have the emotion or a sense of the council that we should move towards 7 with the flexibility of what we just discussed.
I'm for that.
You've put a lot of work in this, and I don't want to introduce anything to interfere with that work. And I will accommodate your collective desires. I'd just like to observe. I think in my experience, all committees are not, because of their function, they are rightly sized differently.
Correct.
Some do better with more, some do better with less. Sometimes it doesn't matter. That's one point. The other challenge is to enfranchise people, to get them involved, to get them engaged. And, there is a point to the more opportunities within limits, within practical limits, the better. A lot of people want to participate and don't have options to do so.
Absolutely.
So those are my 2 suggestions.
Right.
Okay, so if I could just
please
just remind everyone. So this is solely just on renewing the board. The council, as Councilmember Laredo said, there was extensive discussion a couple years ago, and it was decided that all boards in the village by ordinance are set at 7 people going forward. This board was grandfathered in until it expired. So now it's being renewed. So it will be set at 7 members, unless that ordinance is changed.
Well, that's my point. That's fine. And next meeting we'll determine, we as a body will know from Councilmember De La Cruz what his position, what he sees as, does it make any, if there are only 7 active people, then we don't have to we don't have to discuss any action.
But Mayor, if you give that, we're the elected officials, and we need to.
Correct.
And this has let's call it, let's say it's arts and public places. I would have the exact same position. Well, they need to be sensitive that we did. In fact, we went over 7 to accommodate the times. It's now, we need to get, there is some value in our society about uniformity.
But to Councilmember Kaplan's point, it's also, there are different boards that have different,
I know, but we really, remind me, because it was right after.
I recall that.
A lot of time, Frank, on this with open minds, and there's a whole bunch of reports and everything else. I just don't like sometimes we don't do what we did for no reason at all, which agree. So why don't we pass it and revisit the number and get some feedback? And if they're listening, the spirit of this request is not against the board or any one of the 11. It's about bringing it down to what we want as elected officials to be moving forward. And on that, Frank, there is a lot of the reason we need to revisit all of the names. Some of them have been there 10 years, not on this board. I mean, the board has a lot of talent in this community. And one of the things I brought up, and I just planted it since you weren't here on your mind for discussion when we come back to this issue, is to me, it's not fair and it's not appropriate in the spirit of what we're talking about, that more than one person is on boards. It really, and we have, and I try to bring it up before, and they say, well, we have, there are exceptions. Again, on the spirit, you don't want to be locked into a hard rule because Albert Einstein may show up and we want him on all boards. But without an overwhelmingly compelling reason, we should not have an individual serve in more than 2 boards when there are people waiting to be on those boards. And I hope that we can think about this when we discuss it again. And it's just fair. It really is fair and equitable because we have a lot of people who can contribute. So the idea behind it is to kind of get new blood in and mix with old and all that kind of stuff.
Understand. Councilmember Moss, you're muted.
Chad, I have a question for you. If in the future council members want to make a board larger with the ordinance that we have, what is that process? How do we do that? Is that just through resolution? Do we have to change ordinances to do that?
It has to be an ordinance that forms the board.
Well, remember, all boards are created by ordinance. Right. So our standard board procedures now state that unless you specify otherwise, when you create that board by ordinance, it's going to be a board of 7. So going forward, all boards are 7, unless.
But originally, this ordinance had a board of 11, correct?
That's correct, and the ordinance that changed all the boards to 7 recognized that and said once the initial term expires, then it drops to 7.
But what we're passing tonight is a resolution, not changing the ordinance of the original ordinance. So how are we changing it to 7 now?
Because
no. Tonight has nothing to do with the amount of people on the board. Tonight is just renewing or reestablishing the board. The actual determination on who's going to be appointed or not will be at a subsequent discussion. That's what the council is saying. The discussion that's been going on here at the February meeting.
But the number of people for the board is what I don't understand. Right now, we have a number of 11 allowed on the board, and we're not revising the ordinance. We're only passing a resolution.
No. But the number 11 was that way until the terms expired. So right now, if you look at what I had Jocelyn send around to the council earlier today. Give me a second. I'm going to pull it up myself.
Well, I think my question, Chad, is that if we wanted to have a board of more than 7 in the future, when we pass the ordinance for the board at the beginning, we would make that exception at that
correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
That's it. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can we get back to the vote on the resolution, please?
By the way, a lot of those people on that chart already, their term have expired.
Right. We only have 6 people that are currently on that board because the rest have expired. And then out of that 6, 4 of them are expiring in 10 days. Okay. So
let's call the question.
I have a clarification question. Councilman Laredo made a motion to move it towards 7, but
it's moot. It's a moot issue.
Okay, thank you. So this is for 9A. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And for the record, I think the direction also was for staff to reach out to Councilmember Dela Cruz to speak at the next meeting, correct?
Correct. That's correct. Okay. Councilmember Laredo, you wanted to speak about council appointed boards?
Oh, that was it. I combined it.
Perfect.
Not county, our
Mike.
board.
Yeah. Mike, if I could.
Councilmember McCormick?
I would also add for your consideration when we revisit this, again, more officially, to think about the trying to limit, I don't know how to diplomatically ask people who have been are in more than one board to please choose one or the other.
Yeah.
And
that's not a tough question to ask. We can do that. But Councilmember McCormick?
While we're on this conversation, I just want to announce that the Education Advisory Board has 2 vacancies.
Right. Thank you. Okay, next item.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, on the agenda is public comments.
Right. Do we have anybody signed up, Pete, who'd like to speak at this time?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Do you want to repeat the instructions, Peter?
Will do. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you watching at home on channel 77, AT&T channel 99, or streaming live via our website, if you wish to speak on any item, please dial 305-365-7569. Then proceed and enter the meeting ID of 231-627-8415. Those of you that are already in the meeting and wish to speak on any item, please dial *9 now or raise your hand within the app. Mr. Mayor, we have one caller wishing to speak.
Okay.
That will be telephone number 021. Caller, please dial *6 to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Caller, please remember if you're hired a consultant or a village employee, or if engaged in lobbying activities and or representing an organization, please state so for the record. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, this is Don Ellisberg. At 177 Ocean Lane Drive. I'm not sure where what public statement or public area you can get on, but I was very interested in the discussions about the testing and so forth for the virus. What I did not get, and maybe it's another place on the agenda, was any discussion about the fact that we don't have any provisions worked out yet for getting vaccinations. And it seems to me that's the critical issue right now, is we have all tons of people eligible in Key Biscayne who have no place to get a vaccination. I'm personally I personally have had my vaccination, so mine is simply a public interest.
Okay.
I can
Thank you.
I can just tell him that we had in a previous discussion, sometimes we go around and around, we were talking about that our priority should shift towards vaccination.
Right. Okay.
Oh, and also I wanted to tell you from the point of view of somebody who is on the board of an otherwise malign group today of 12 hospitals, we have run out of vaccines in Dade County and in the state of Florida. It's not us. We're doing all we can to try to. We have to get it first.
Right. Mr. Ellisberg, do you have any other comments? I'm sorry, I just want to get through public comments.
Look, I'm raising this issue because it is, it's like the elephant in the room, that everybody's got reasons why it's not being done. And meanwhile, lots of people are getting vaccinations somehow, despite the crowds. And we appear not to be in the run. That's all I'm observing.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
There is no one else signed up currently to speak.
Okay. Thank you. Next item.
Oh, Mayor, I think his point.
Well,
a little confusing, but just for your follow-up with the manager.
Let's have the manager. The manager's going to be on next. So let's go the manager's update right now. I believe we'll get an update. I didn't want to ruin it for anybody, but I think the manager's going to be giving us a little bit of an update about what's being done on that front.
The next item, Mr. Mayor's reports and recommendations, village manager, manager's ongoing project update.
Council, Mayor, in light of that conversation, I'm going to turn this over to Chief Lang, who has been our tip of the sword, so to speak, on the process of providing the vaccine. I can tell you that the village administration, along with the Key Biscayne Community Foundation, has been working feverishly to be completely prepared the day we actually do receive vaccines. And the fact is that there may be a few vaccines here or there in Miami-Dade County and in the state of Florida, but the majority of vaccines that are currently available are the second vaccine, not the first. So I'm going to turn this over to Chief Lang, and he could provide us with the information that not only Don was looking for, but that you all need for your constituents. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Hope you all are well. As the Chief pointed out, we have been working extremely diligently. We're ready to go at a moment's notice. Our goal is within 24 hours of the health department notifying us. The plan is for us to execute, if you will, the plan. It's a combination of efforts between the Key Biscayne Community Foundation and the work that Melissa White and her staff has done, Todd and Roxy over in the community center. IT is going to be supporting us and our fire rescue. And we will get started as soon as we have vaccines. I did talk to the health department today and they don't have a timeline. He said it could be weeks, it could be a month. They really don't know. We talked about the different types of vaccines that we could host, and whether it was the Pfizer vaccine, which required the very cold temperatures. We have a freezer that's available to us through the City of Miami Fire Rescue. And we've got transport and coolers and dry ice and freezers that we can temporarily defrost the vaccine. And so we are ready to go, but as Councilmember Laredo pointed out, there's a shortage of vaccines. It's just not available. I'm available for any questions.
Do I have any questions? I think, I think we're all very anxious to see, and I know what you guys are putting in. I know you and Melissa are working hard on this, and, we're doing everything we can, but
the only good news about that, boss, is simply that the second those vaccines are available, we already have a list, we have appointments, we're ready to go, and we're just lying in wait right now, period.
And we will keep up our efforts to secure those vaccines. I know council members are working independently to try and see what they can do, so I appreciate all your efforts.
Well, that last clarification actually confuses. Do you say that we have the second vaccines in Key Biscayne, Chief?
No, sir.
Right, but it comes across that way. We have a communications problem here, and I think with the last report with the Chief and today, people have to perhaps on our newsletter in plain, simple English tell them we're doing all we can to get the vaccines. We simply don't have vaccines, period.
Right.
The people who have vaccines, again, I go to Baptist because it's 12 hospitals. They had to stop the first shot because the few remaining shots, which are the same, they needed to have for the second shot. Otherwise, it's a double loss. You lose the people who took between 3 weeks. But I know that you didn't mean to, but by saying that we have the second vaccine, people may say, oh, there is something in Key Biscayne. We in Key Biscayne have no vaccine. And what we have to do is get on everybody's face because everybody else is doing it. You got to be a pest all over the place. All of us have different contacts. Right. But for the citizens listening, we are committed to doing it. We just don't have it.
Respectfully, in light of what you just said, I was not trying to intimate any time that we had any second vaccine. that is more readily available throughout the state of Florida than the first vaccine. What I want people to understand, and I don't think that was clear to Mr. Ellisberg and maybe to other people, is that we are completely prepared to move the day those vials come into Key Biscayne, period. It's not like we're sitting and waiting and then we're going to first start putting together a plan. The plan is ready. Our demographics are ready. Our appointments are ready. All we have to do is have a vial. We've got bodies to give shots, bodies to monitor, and we're ready to go.
Thank you, Chuck. If I could just let you guys know, to add to what Manager Press and Chief Lang have said, we have been doing all of the preparation for when and if we get an allotment from the Department of Health. And to your point, we are being pests. For those people that know me, I'm good at doing that. I'm good at being a pest. So at Mayor's shaking his head. At 5 o'clock to 5:30 today, I had a call with Donna Shalala, who was very gracious in trying to figure out how she could help us with a county allotment. She was going to reach out to the mayor as well. Both Eric and Chuck have been on Department of Health calls regularly, awaiting the allotment. We've done all of the paperwork. We've had our IT guy build out a whole back office suite so that appointments can be made up to 96 a day. That's with 9 hours a day, assuming we get our allotment. And I reach out to hospitals on a regular basis and say, if you have any leftover vaccine, we have lots of people willing to drive seniors 65 and older over. In fact, Vice Mayor London's wife volunteered today. Former council member Katie Petros volunteered today. So we're just waiting for vaccines to be available. And we want the public to know we are doing everything, and I am truly trying to be a pest.
May I ask just clarification on the reference to appointments already having been made? Does that refer to our sort of first tier high risk population already slated, identified?
Yes. So what we did is we took the survey that we did that came back with over 720 responses, and not all of them were 65 and older. So some of them were younger seniors, and we took the priority ones and we've created a list. We have about 500 people, 65 and older, that meet the qualifications currently recommended by CDC and state.
Okay. That's an important piece of data. People need to know that.
Yes.
Okay. Anything next item, Mr. Manager?
In light of the fact that probably the most important thing we're going to do tonight is talk about the manager search, just want to give you all a quick update on the beach camera. In your report, you saw that we should have had it up today. I wish that were the case, but the actual pole that's needed to support the camera had to be specifically painted and coated with protection for anti-rust. And that's delayed the placement of the pole. The camera's ready, the electricity's ready, and all we're waiting for is that pole. And the second they get it, Todd will ensure that that is available to us. Dogs at the beach, I think you all have seen what I sent you as to our initial visit with the Miami-Dade County Animal Control and the direction that we provided with our police officers. I sent today a beautiful document created by Chad, and thank you, Chad, very much, in the firm. That document is FAQs that not only our police officers are going to use, but I've directed our communications people to put it out in every way, shape, or form so the community is very aware, because as I'm certain you all know, we have an ordinance on dogs on the beach, but that's for service dogs, and we allow dogs in our parks. Now, Miami-Dade County kind of looks at the beach as a park also, but they don't allow for the emotional support dogs on the beach. But we allow, through our ordinance, support dogs and emotional support dogs in our parks. So this should clear any questions that our citizens may have, and it'll provide the best information at all. I want to tell you on behalf of the police department that weekends, we still have our full-time police officer out there on the ATV for 10 hours a day. During the week, Monday through Friday, we do not have the manpower to keep that officer out there all day long. However, 3 times a day, an officer will be assigned to run up and down the beach to do whatever enforcement is necessary over there. And obviously, if they have a call for service out on the beach, they respond to that also. Regarding our juveniles.
May I ask you a question on that?
Please do. Please do.
This weekend, I was Saturday and Sunday on purpose. About Saturday, maybe 3 hours, and Sunday, about 3 hours. I did not see one policeman, and I saw about 10 dogs. That's number one. Number two, when we last talked, and the resolution reflected in the minutes was to reach out to the condominiums associations. And that has not happened because they can be very helpful. Because if they stop people as they leave their security into the beach, it would be a supplement to our enforcement. That has not happened. They're easily, I already called one, which is a Key Colony. They had not heard. I had to forward the minutes and everything to them. We need to reach out to the Condominiums Association because it just actually was worth this weekend than the previous one.
Well, that's a gotcha moment, and you got me. I'll have to reach out to the staff over in the police department because I have been assured that we do have people out there on the weekend, and I'll get back to you on that. As far as the communications with our condo associations and everyone else, that direction went out today with this FAQ that will be sent out to all of our associations through every avenue we can possibly send it out. So it will be clear, concise as to what is allowed, what is not allowed, and what actions we'll take. And on the February 9th meeting, I'll be able to bring back to you actual activities that we've done in lieu of that. And thank you for bringing that to my attention because there are things that if they're not brought to my attention, I can't do anything about. So I'll follow up on that, sir.
Okay.
The last thing I would like to talk about, Mr. Mayor and Council, is the juvenile situation.
Please.
If people have not heard already, there was a hit and run that we discussed earlier. People need to understand, and I know that I had a conversation with Councilmember McCormick. She was extremely emotional and upset, as she should be, as to what occurred that day. But when you have investigations that go on, in order for us to properly manage that investigation, we have to take witness statements. You can think what you want at the time and say, wow, it's all there, but it's not necessarily all there until we do our due diligence and we work along with the state attorney and present them with all the information we have. There will be an action that is taken. I don't want to speak on that now, but I will put something out throughout the community in a public service notice, letting them know what happened in that. I could also tell you there were arrests made this weekend involving some drug activity with some of our juveniles. We have provided civil citations to a bunch of juveniles on the beach this weekend. And we have a plan that is ongoing, fine-tuned, and as we, come up with those statistics, I'll be able to provide you all a more complete picture. This is an ongoing, fluid thing that we do. We try X. If X doesn't work, we try Y. If Y doesn't work, we try Z. I have provided our police department with the resources from our asset forfeiture money that could be used in a special investigation or a crime prevention, situation, and we're currently using that. So we will not be impacting any of the previously budgeted dollars that the village has provided us to give you your ongoing service during the year. And with that, I'll turn it over back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Mike, can I?
Thank you. Yeah, Councilmember McCormick.
Chief, thank you for that. I wonder if it might be helpful for residents at home and perhaps even the news media that cover these meetings, if you could just refresh everyone's memory about what the rules are with respect to, you mentioned teens on the beach. I know we often talk about the fact that to drive a golf cart, you must have a driver's license, but I don't feel we've had a discussion with respect to what our rules are with the beach after dark.
Give me 1 second, ma'am.
Sure.
My daughter
has pretty flowers
for that. So in respect to the laws on the beach, there are actually trespassing laws that occur during certain times of the day. And there's a county ordinance that we have provided our officers with, and our nighttime officers specifically with, because the county ordinance talks about from sundown to sunup, parks, county parks, which includes, by the way, beaches are considered parks for this ordinance. We can actually cite people for trespassing. And that would include adults who are taking a walk on the beach in the middle of the night or in the late afternoon, and they pass at 7 p.m. when sunset occurs, situations like that. But for what we're trying to do here, we're providing our cops with every tool possible and with a zero tolerance expectation that if we have people violating these laws and these rules, there will be zero tolerance. That's going to create anxiety, and I'm not really concerned about that. And I've made it very clear that we have council support. The police department has my support as the interim manager right now. But those things, as we started really pushing hard this weekend, will be violations that are going to involve parents. We're utilizing the curfew that Miami-Dade County has put in place for the weekends. We are going to use every tool at our disposal with a zero tolerance effort.
Amen.
Chief, if you could refresh our memory about the curfew as well.
The curfew for Friday and Saturday night is midnight, and the curfew for every other night is 11 p.m.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, I think this is correct, but another reminder. It is impermissible to drink spirituous beverages in parks. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is. Yes, sir. But, and let's not convolute this issue. We have many family gatherings. We have family gatherings on the beach that go past this certain time. This is one of those, as Councilmember Laredo would say, slippery slopes. You can't just go after one type of person. You can't be selective in your enforcement. The enforcement has to involve everyone, or the idea that we are actually going after a certain group, culture, age, etc., in those common areas. Those laws that affect the common areas are something that is going to affect everybody in this community. So, you know, we understand that our officers usually have that discretion to use. However, sometimes you can't afford discretion. And in this case, until we get this situation under control, there's very little leeway that the officers have. Of course, if God forbid somebody has a reasonable excuse for being somewhere that they shouldn't or doing something, you bet I expect our cops to understand that. But for the most part, zero tolerance.
I think I'd be interested in having a conversation at some point about maybe more targeted legislation to really address the root of the problem and not be so sweeping if it's possible to do so. But that's not a conversation for tonight.
And sir, we need to understand that when you take a look at exacting your enforcement, you have to understand that these kids are watching, hate to say this, they're watching adults do the same thing that they're doing. Okay? And they're privy to things in their homes and to people affording them these opportunities to have these beverages, as you referred to, and things of that nature. So I'm going to go back and say it takes a village. This is similar to everything else we do in enforcement. It's got to take everybody in this community to say enough's enough. The adults have to be held accountable as well as the children, because the children are only, following the adults' lead in many, many circumstances here.
Is negligent supervision a misdemeanor?
Yes, it is.
There may be tools, but we certainly have a problem.
Yeah, that's not for tonight. And I think we've all given the manager and his police department our full support, and we support their endeavors to turn this village back into the village. So let's get to it. Thank you. Thank you, manager.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is mayor and council members. Next steps regarding village manager recruitment, procedures, processes, and background checks.
Right. Well, let me just say, this was a long process. I learned quite a bit, frankly, from everybody that I got to talk to. I believe we have an incredible array of candidates. I think we've got a lot of strong candidates. Frankly, I think some strong candidates, because I limited myself, Councilmember Laredo, to 5. I wasn't able to include some people who, frankly, I think, merit review. But I think I'm comfortable with the people I proffered. I think I want to have a discussion here tonight. I know that I believe Juan put together a spreadsheet of all of our selections, our short lists, if you will, and then listed them by the number of council member votes, I guess you could call it, that each received. Again, there's some really good people on here. I feel really good about our options. So let's discuss, how do we want, I guess my question to you all is, we're going to select around 5 this evening to move forward into the next round. And then what are our next steps, and how do we want to do this? I know I will want to reach out I will certainly be speaking to each one of them again, whoever we choose to move forward, and we'll be giving the Berkeley group marching orders on how they are to proceed. And so let's go. Vice Mayor.
It's my understanding the Berkeley group contract is ready to go. Would it maybe be helpful if we had a clear picture of exactly what that contains to sort of frame our conversation?
That's a great idea.
Nicole.
Mr. Manager?
Okay, the Berkeley group contract has not been signed by myself or by the group. We received on Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock by the Berkeley group some questions regarding our contractual language. We spoke today, myself, Chad Fossler, regarding that language. We oppose the changes that they have recommended. We have to do what's in the best interest for the village of Key Biscayne. It includes insurance language. It includes rights by the manager to hold back on the funding of their report if the report is a failure and not at the level of expectations that we have provided for in the scope. I think we're really close. I believe that by tomorrow we should have something, but as of tonight, We do not have a signed contract.
Okay. But the terms, what have we, taking out the items that you're talking about here, insurance language, holdbacks, what are the items specific? What exactly? Thank you. To talk plain language, that's exactly that. What are they going to do, and how much are we going to how much is it going to cost us?
Okay, I would turn that over to Mr. Fossler and Chad to provide you with that information.
Okay.
Tom, are you there?
All right, you guys.
He's there. Yep. Okay.
All right, so we get a revised proposal after the last council meeting. Basically, they're going to take the pool of applicants that you guys choose tonight, and they're going to do these preliminary interviews. Basically do these assessments and then put forward. I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
So they're going to check the references of these finalists. They're going to conduct an interview process, and then they'll put together their assessment and present to you guys a report at the end of this whole thing.
And Tom, how much does it cost? Is it per candidate? Is there a limit to the number?
So it looks like their total cost for what they want to do is about $22,000.
Oh my God.
And they also do this in-basket exercise is $250 per candidate. And they do an advanced insights assessment, which is $500 per finalist. And about $1,000 per presentation of their test results at the end. So
let me,
when they come up with,
may I just interrupt you?
Councilmember Laredo, let him finish, and then
Okay.
I think we've all got a few. Let's just wade through this. Mr. Foster, go ahead.
So that's what I've got on their total proposal. So all in all, like fully loaded in, the not to exceed cost would be $22,000 for them to go through this exercise. It looks like what they would have that's like a conditional, depends on how many candidates you guys want at the end presented to you. If they test the top 2 to 3, it's $500 per administered test and $1,000 per test presentation. So that's.
Can I add something? Excuse me.
All 3 presented to you. That's a per. If you want 1 candidate, that's a.
Okay, I'm a little confused. Juan, you want to weigh in? Yeah, weigh in for a minute, Juan, and then we'll come back to a discussion.
If I may add, so the in-basket is at cost of the provider.
What is an in-basket? Let's just start. Consider
the in-basket.
Forgive me, I was in recruiting. What the hell is an in-basket?
The in-basket is an assignment that's given that is one of the items that Connie Hoffman has proposed. So it's the same provider that Connie was going to use, and they're not tacking any additional cost to that. And then the assessments, the 2 assessments that Tom referred to, yes, there is a $500 per assessment, but the $1,000 for the presentation is an optional presentation. That's only if you would like for them to provide a video presentation of the results. Otherwise, they will provide you a written results of those assessments. So the additional $1,000 is only if you want them to provide a video presentation of the results for each candidate.
All right, so Juan, let me just be clear, because I think I'm getting a breakthrough for myself here. So let's assume, and I'm going to blow Ed's head. His mind's going to explode when I say this. Let's assume we do all 5 for $250 each with the in-basket assignment, and then we do $500 for each assessment. Is that correct? That would be 20. What I get there is that's $750 per, which comes out to $3,750. I'm doing good math. Ed's proud of me. Is that, you get that one? Or how is that what we're talking about for these 5?
No.
Is there, are there additional?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes,
that would be the cost.
I mean, I didn't check the math because you.
No, I trust my math, but yeah, I'm not. But I'm saying, so for 500 people to have to have that test, that's $250 each. For $500 to do the assessment, that's all we're talking. So it's just $3,750. Is that correct? If my math is correct, assuming that it's $750 per finalist of the 5.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Mayor, they're misleading you, Mayor. I'm sorry.
Hold on. I just want to know where do we get to with $22,000 total?
The $22,000 total comes from, they have these tasks in there, the application process, and that's about $8,000 that runs on two weeks. And it's basically they take the pool from you and evaluate each of these candidates and recommend their potential to you.
Okay, but
and then they have.
Okay, all right. So I guess that's the conversation here in front of us. And Frank, I think that was, I think you had some points on that.
Can I just add something, Mayor?
Please.
So included in that 22,000 is there. Yes, I know that each one of you have had conversations and have had phone interviews with these candidates. They will conduct their own interviews and do their own assessment based on those interviews of each of the candidates that you present to them. I guess it's whatever we want them to do. So if you feel that the interviews that the 7 of you conducted are sufficient, I guess we can ask them to take that out of the.
So what you're saying is, so in order to interview all 50, they would interview all 52 again?
No. They would interview the short list that you provide to them.
The short list we provide to them, the 5, and that would be the $8,000 to go through those interviews again. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense to me, frankly. I understand the rationale behind that. I thought we were talking about.
Mayor, whenever you have a chance.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Councilor, I'm dominating. Councilmember Laredo, you go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm usually very supportive of staff. This is the most non-answer that I have seen in this council. I mean, this is really very simple, and yet it's convoluted. I don't know exactly what both of them presented. 22,000, your math. By the way, 22,000, before you even get into the details of what they want, is higher than some of the original proposals, which included the stuff that we're talking upon ourselves. My time is worth a lot more than you as a lawyer. And this is ridiculous to go through a $22,000. Then why did we not choose this stuff? I mean, it's completely out of control. Maybe it's our fault because we don't give clear signals, but $22,000 for either 3 or 5, whichever members we suggest. It is so out of the park for me that it's embarrassing that the answers are not even consistent between Juan and Tomas. I mean, you have 22,000 plus an additional 1,000. So they're giving us a menu, and then that just keeps going up. I know. We're all professionals. This is full of. But at the end of the day, as a minimum, it's $22,000, which is ridiculous.
No, I don't think that's right. I think what Tom was saying was that was the absolute cap, right, Tom? That was all in. If we went all bells and whistles, that was going to be the maximum amount we could spend. That's what I got from your conversation, from your presentation, right? Okay.
Thomas, excuse me, Mayor, I'm not interrupting you. Please give me an answer. Thomas?
My understanding is that it's 22,000 for the application and selection process, right? And that's not including the non-direct costs. So that's
not including whenever you get and not including. So Thomas,
batteries not included.
22,000. Please, just cut through the bureaucratic speak.
Have we received a copy of this contract ourselves? I mean, this seems like
I saw a copy of the contract that did not, I think, contain those terms. I thought the contract that I read had a menu of options with a price associated with each, that was not an all-in price. And it also had an additional component of service, which was to tell us what they think about any selections, any of the 52, just what their opinion would have been, as if they were picking 5. But then to go through our final selections, our 5, do the psych evaluation, and then a report on 3 things: the reference check, the psych eval, and their interviews.
That's what I understood.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I've got to let Councilmember London, and then you go, because I blew him off to Councilmember Laredo. Go ahead, right, Councilmember London.
You're muted.
Michael always mutes me. So anyway, I think amongst ourselves, we must decide, what do we want them to do? We talked about, we do want to have a reference check. I don't think we're talking about any kind of application thing. I don't think we're talking about interview. Might want to do that, but the basic thing was a reference check, as to the best of my knowledge. And also whatever, say, psychological or testing that they do. And that was my understanding that we wanted them to do, which I understand from Michael's math, it's $3,750 for the 5 people. Anything else we want them to do, let's discuss it now. Do we want them to do the things we've done? Do we want them to go review 52 candidates that I reviewed twice? Do we want them to go ahead and then start interviewing each one of these people that I assume each one of us has interviewed at least once that we've selected? And the only thing is that I would think that since the 7 of us will not have all the 5 same candidates, that there will be some people possibly that council members have not interviewed who might wind up in those 5. So we could then give those council members a day or 2 to call them, to talk to them, and then everybody would have viewed everybody in the 5. So really, where do we want to go from this? Do we want to spend $22,000? Do we want to spend $4,000? And that's where we are.
Councilmember Segurola?
We're talking about a contract, but this latest version of the contract has not been circulated. I haven't seen it. Before I start picking from the menu of what's been presented, I'd like to be able to take a look at the contract. And then it sounds to me, I mean, I've been unhappy with this process from the very beginning. I think we should have hired a search firm. Now we're paying exactly the same thing for a much smaller service. That seems to be what the proposal on the table is, $22,000. $22,000. Councilmember Laredo is right. It's the same or more than what was presented 3 months ago to us. Now we have on the table, are we going to re-interview the 52 people now that we've seen each other's list? Or are we going to re-interview only the ones that each other has selected? Or are we going to let the search firms re-interview all 52 people? Or are we going to start picking from this menu that has been presented on this new latest version of the contract? Personally, I think we need to, number one, get the latest version of the contract so we can see and decide intelligently at the next meeting, since I haven't seen this thing. And number two, now that we have the short list, Councilmember London, you're right. There's people on the list I didn't speak to because they weren't on my short list. So, I mean, we keep churning in the same water, but I don't see how we can go forward, especially we can discuss all we want at this meeting about the contract, but we can't go forward without looking at specifics of what's been proposed and the price tag attached to each.
Mr. Manager, you wanted to say something? I saw you motioning.
Just briefly, I came in at the tail end of all of this. I have not yet seen the contract. I found out today that we have issues on the contract. What I would suggest that I do is I get the opportunity to meet with our firm and our administration, review the latest contract proposal, bring it back to you all. But I'm also going to suggest this. The idea of having them look at all 52 people is ludicrous. It makes no sense at all. What they should be doing is they should only be reviewing the 5 people that the village council selects as their 5 finalists. But this is my caveat. When I do a background check on a cop, it takes a lot more than just simply doing a little reference check and things like that. There is a tremendous amount of work that goes into finding out whether that cop has had issues in the past, Does he have issues with his neighbors in his past work product, this, that, and the other? There's a lot of work that gets involved in that. The assessment center, I think, is extremely important. It's not the catch-all, but it's a great tool to see how they handle an in-basket. It puts them under a little bit of pressure. What's their idea when you tell them you've got $50 million to underground our utilities? How are they going to manage that? What's their first step, second step, third step? It provides us with a snapshot of how they actually manage. And thirdly, let them provide you with a background that you could be assured if you make a decision on the first one, fourth one, or fifth one, that there are going to be no surprises. And that takes work. And I don't think we have to pay $22,000. I would just like the opportunity to take a look at it and provide you with our best option. It'll be a quick turnaround, folks. This is not rocket science.
Fine. That's fine. I like
Fine.
that. Me?
Mike?
Yes, Councilmember McCormick and then Councilmember Laredo.
I might not be on your screen because I keep raising.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You know what? You're kind of down, and so I miss you sometimes. Sorry, it's the ring. It's the ring light.
It's the 5 feet. Oh, thank you. It's the 5 feet tall. So I agree with Chief Press about the 22,000. When we made the decision to not go with a search firm from the beginning, and we felt that we could do this preliminary step ourselves, we decided not to have a search firm go through all 52 candidates. We have all spent so much time on this, not just with the resumes. I know I personally interviewed 18 candidates. I didn't have a single conversation that was less than an hour. We all have put so much time into this. It is still important to me, as it has been from the first time we talked about bringing a consultant in at this point, to do this sort of inbox simulation thing and the interviewing of our top candidates. I'm not interested in having somebody go back and second guess the work that the 7 of us already did on the 52. When we get nervous about spending at this point, I would like to just remind everyone how essential this hire is, but also that with Chief Press and the manager's office right now, we're saving lots of money every month anyway by not paying our former managers. So I think the money is there, and I think it will absolutely be money well spent. I would love to see what Chief Press gives us in the contract, and then propose that either it depends on what you guys think. If he has individual conversations with us, it's within his authority to execute it. We already gave him that authority. But if not, if you feel like this needs to be a public discussion, I certainly would be available to come for a special meeting to discuss the specifics of the contract. As I'm not going anywhere. It's a pandemic, so I'm here.
Councilmember Laredo, and then Councilmember Kaplan, and then Councilmember Segurola. I got y'all.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I have to tell you, I'm disappointed, and I know these are difficult times in transition for staff and everything else with having, moving from one manager to an interim, et cetera, et cetera. But us 7, for all of you staff listening, have no bigger responsibility under the statute, under the charter, than picking a manager. How you could not think that would be so important that you wouldn't be 120% prepared for this meeting. After all the time, we've been at this now for 5 months, and we're looking pretty bad in terms of the public, at least the people who talk to me, delaying this. But I'm disappointed that when asked specific questions, and the manager now says he got word today about this contract, and none of us have gotten a copy of the contract. We have to, that's a problem for the next manager, but this to me is unbelievable. There's about background checks, Chief. I've been through a lot of background checks, including myself with FBI. There is some of these finalists, whether we decide to die 3, 4, or 5, have a lifetime of, most of them, of public service. That in itself is, if you don't go from manager of Fort Lauderdale to manager of Broward County without being completely checked out. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel back to when he's 18 years old. So this call of references. And by the way, as I'm sure all of you have done, I have checked with references that they submitted, and then I put the appropriate balance on them because obviously they're advocating for the county. So that should not be like it's not rocket science. This thing about inbox is the only thing that may be new, and it may be useful, and it may be affordable. The rest is unbelievably expensive, not necessary, and we made the decision a long time ago not to spend this money, and that's why we all work hard at it. Now, I don't know where London is today, the 26th of January, but I was intrigued by his proposal a couple of meetings ago of, again, by saving money, to say, let's see how many people get how many votes, and perhaps we should start on a descending order of expenditures. So if we have a general consensus on somebody who, by our original vote, seems to have the quote votes, let's spend on that person. And if it doesn't cross that referendum, then we don't need to go to 2, 3, and 4. And I don't know if I thought you were going to bring it up because I thought it was a very good idea because we've done a lot of work already.
I brought it up before, Luis, but no one supported me.
That's right.
No,
Council.
I thought I did.
Well, yeah, you two did.
Well, what do you want to do, Mayor? We're going to then.
Well, Councilmember Kaplan's going to go, and then Councilmember Cigarola, and then Councilmember Moss, and then we'll come back and we'll make some decisions. I think we got to, I want to hear from everybody before we start putting things up for a vote.
Here's my sort of concise view. I'm surprised and disappointed as well that the contract wasn't able to be consummated by now. It seemed rather simple to me the last time we met. Simple because I think where we came out was we wanted them to do a couple of discrete things. We'll boil it down to 5. We pledged to do that, and we've each done that. We wanted them, I believe, to do the reference checks, to do interviews, to do assessments, and to tell us what their responses are, what they think. Simple as that. I personally don't need to see a contract as long as it provides for that scope of service at the right price. And I think my understanding of the right price was for that scope of work, it was roughly around where Mayor Davies speculated it should be.
How much?
$37.50. Councilmember Cigarola?
I think I think there's so many curveballs that have been thrown out at this meeting. I think we need to pump the brakes. We've all done our job of coming up with a short list of 5. Those numbers have been tabulated. My preference is to get the contract after this meeting. We take a look at it and that we discuss our next step either at the next meeting in 2 weeks or we call a special meeting in a week, whichever one you prefer is fine. But since this is the most important decision we can make, there's no rush and nothing will be lost by taking another week or 2.
Councilmember Moss?
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with what's already been said here. We can definitely get down to the 5 based on the information that we have in front of us. We did a lot of this work. I don't think we need one thing I'm only not sure of is the interviews. I don't know, what are we going to get out of the interviews of this company interviewing them? Is that part of the psychological assessment that we were talking about?
That was my understanding.
No, it's different.
No, it's different.
It's different?
Okay, so what is the interview? What are we getting out of it? That's what I want.
The reason that I think it's important to me, and everybody can draw their own opinion on this, I want an independent person who's expert at doing this to tell me what they think.
And this person that's doing the interviews are a manager? Is this not just a company that, they actually have somebody who has the expertise in management of municipalities that's going to do those interviews independently? I just want to make sure that's what we're going to get.
My understanding is that it's an expertise in assessing people, their talents, their skill sets as suitable for the job description.
Okay. And then background checks, reference checks, and psychological assessments would be the other one. So we're looking at getting those 4 things done for 5 of our top candidates, and for a certain price. So one thing I think that we could do tonight, because my understanding, the 3,700 or whatever it was that your math came out to, Mayor.
It's not my math. It's all math. It comes out to the same number regardless. Anyway.
But that included background checks, reference checks, and psychological assessment. But it did not include the interview portion of it, correct?
That's right.
So I don't want to push the brakes as Councilman Segurola put there. I think that maybe what we could do is come up with a not to exceed number to add the interviews in there and let the staff go back and see if they can execute the deal. If they can't, then maybe we could have a special meeting to sit down and try to figure this out. But I would like to keep it moving and include those 4 things for our top 5 candidates that have come up.
And I'm going to speak. I just want to jump in here and be part of the crowd. So let's be clear. What I want to be clear on right now is let's go back to we all got the spreadsheet from Juan Gutierrez, right?
No,
you didn't get it. You got it, Ed. You just have to learn how to use it.
It was actually from.
It's from Jocelyn. Jocelyn sent it, but it's a spreadsheet. It's Excel.
It came late today, Ed.
Yeah, it came later this afternoon because we all had to put in. But my point on this is, if you look at it, there are 5 who have the most, right? There's Stephen Williamson, Brian Lynch, Christopher Rose, Joe Fernandez, and Tom Bradford. All, Mr. Williamson had 6, Lynch had 4, Rose had 3, Fernandez had 3, Bradford had 3. That's their 5 top finishers. So I just, so we can start making decisions as we go. Are those the 5 that we're going to move on?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I just let
we agreed to.
Let's make a decision tonight. Okay. So that would be my point. Then subsequently, let's get back into this process. I tend to agree. I think we've done an okay job in moving forward. We learned at the end of September that we were losing our manager. We had an election going on. We didn't take a lot of concrete steps about anything until November into December. I agree. I'm a little frustrated with the way this contract issue is rolled out. I can't, probably not all on staff, because it sounds like it went back to the contractor and just got dropped back to us. But I would like to see us, I agree with everybody here. I have no problem with them doing an assessment of each of these people, even doing an interview, provided the cost is not exorbitant. I'm not going to pay $22,000 for them to interview the 5 people that we're giving them to run. The $37.50 for the inbox and the eval, psych eval, and then the $1,000 for the, I guess $1,000 per person on the interviews. I'm okay with that, with $5,000. So that'd be $8,750. I'm okay with that price.
I think it was $500 for the interviews, $1,000 for the presentation.
Okay, well, I don't need a presentation. I don't know what
we can read.
We don't need a presentation.
We do not need the presentation.
No, we can read.
I agree, but if it costs a little bit more, I'm with Brett on the Councilmember Moss on the point of, if it costs us a little bit extra to have their independent assessment, and I want to be cautionary here. We've had a few times where we had outsiders come in. I think we've done a heck of a good job. I mean, if you look at all the candidates that we all kind of coalesced around, all of us, all 7 of us are pretty close. We all at least picked similar people to one another. So we get it. I think this council understands what we're looking for in terms of the next manager. So I'm not uncomfortable with the way we've done our job here. But I don't want to just hand it off to somebody, but I don't mind having sort of an independent audit, if you will, to have somebody assessed how we've done to this point. And that's my lead-in, Vice Mayor.
Okay, since I didn't see the scoring or the number of votes that each member had, but it appears that, like you said, there's a commonality between us in this election process. So why don't we just take the top 3 if you want to spend more money and have the interview, if you want to have the interview, and not just do the psych, the inbox and the reference checks. Maybe you want to have those 3 also do the interviews with them, if that's what you want to do. That's probably not necessary, because if the number 1 gets it, why do we want to bother with 2 or 3?
I would like to say that I'd like to.
I don't think that's all 5.
I'd like to do the full thing for the 5 of them, and the reason why is just because one person was in 6 people's top 5. It's not necessary that they were.
Okay, I understand. Okay, fine, I understand.
I agree.
Then I would say, let's do what Mike said. It was cost us $37.50.
Plus
then
8.
Come back with that, and then we go from there.
Plus 5 for the additional whatever.
Which comes out to $62.50.
It cannot be
$87.50.
Michael.
Yes. Wait, hold on. I got 3 people talking. Councilmember Laredo, you're recognized.
Michael, that's why I'm frustrated with that. The amount of time and effort that we all put in this is ridiculous. How could it be $1,000 per candidate for an interview. Come on.
I don't know if it, apparently it's not.
Unacceptable. How could you be a
council member? I don't know. That was my misstatement. Brett corrected me on that. That's me speaking. It's not them.
I'm with you at 3,700 and maybe a little bit more for the interview, but
that's my point. Like I
$5,000.
Understood. That was me misspeaking. I misspoke the number. So let's.
Because you had originally wanted us to meet with them, interview them on the 4th. Well,
March 4th. We said March 4th was going to be March 2nd was going to be our interview time. But let's, we may be able to move that depending on how things go. But this is up to the search firm now doing their job. And again, to the manager's point, I don't want to rush this. I want to do this right. And background checks do matter. It's interesting. I've seen people get jobs in the public sector and then something pops up later on. Everything on the internet's forever, and sometimes stuff pops and that's it. So I have no problem taking our time and doing this right, making sure that whoever we put in that seat is the right person for all of us. So I don't know. Just one more question, Councilmember Moss. I see your hand up. To Councilmember, Mr. Fossler, is there something in there that they said they would charge per interview, or was it just some blanket fee?
No. So they have listed it as additional services. The in-basket exercise. That's
that's $250. Then there's something for $500.
Right. So just interviews alone, no, they don't break that price out.
They don't break that down. All right. So Chief, Mr. Manager, that's what we have to go back and figure out how much is that going to cost us. Councilmember Moss, you're recognized.
No, I was just going to say that, I would make a motion that we go ahead and move forward with the interviews, background checks, reference checks, psychological assessment, selecting the 5 candidates that we have here, which is Stephen Williamson, Brian Lynch, Christopher Rose, Joseph Fernandez, and Thomas Bradford for a not to exceed $6,000. And if they can get that done, that they should start moving forward.
I second the motion if I have some motion.
Let me ask.
Yes. Hold on. Madam Manager, Madam Clerk, you had a question.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the motion?
Yes.
Motion. Oh yeah, go ahead. Repeat your motion.
My motion was that we select Stephen Williamson, Brian Lynch, Christopher Rose, Joseph Fernandez, and Thomas Bradford as our 5, and that we include interviews, background checks, reference checks, psychological assessment.
Wait, reference checks?
Yeah, reference checks, psychological assessment. You got background checks and interviews.
Interviews, background checks, reference checks,
psychological assessment.
Inbox assessment.
That would not to exceed $6,000.
They're not doing background checks. Juan's doing background.
That's right. So
we'll take that out. And just inbox. Okay. Yeah, the inbox. For not to exceed $6,000. And if they can do that, go ahead and move forward.
An observation, what you're proposing is a new contract.
No, it's essentially what they've proposed. It may be with the interviews not included.
Well,
and only 5.
And then we also have to look at all these other terms that we haven't seen yet.
Well, we have an attorney to look at.
Yeah, what's objectionable? To be clear, the proposal is what you guys have really been saying. Contract. You've been talking about proposal. As far as the contractual terms, we gave them our standard agreement,
service agreement,
and they came back with a couple of provisions that the manager and I felt were objectionable.
Exactly.
They were. Yeah, I will tell you what they were.
There is no agreement in place, and if you propose this, if you make this new proposal, that's fine. I understand the proposal, but they're expecting a bunch of other things. So it's not that there's going to be a contract in place if we vote for this right now.
We don't know. We're making a motion to empower the manager and the attorney to go forward and put this proposal out there in connection with our service agreement.
If they don't come, we meet again then.
To put exactly, we're empowering them to put a new proposal out there.
I don't view this as a new proposal.
It's not a new proposal. It's
there's no signed contract, and it's a simplification of the services that they're.
It's the same
offering.
Services we've been talking about since last meeting. It's the same.
Correct.
It's essentially the same services.
No, that we've been talking about, but apparently they're talking about other services in this contract. I don't know.
They were proposing additional, they were proposing
exactly.
additional.
That's what I'm
But
saying.
it's not new.
We're cutting the fat, and they may want the fat.
Well, then
I
don't think that's right.
We don't want it.
Well, we won't know until the manager tries.
Correct.
And let's see what
Absolutely.
happens. We have a
I
direction.
completely agree.
Yes, we're making a policy decision.
Yes,
I understand. I understand, but I just want to clarify that because we're agreeing to this today doesn't mean it's going to get done in the next 2 weeks.
Exactly.
It means we're going to throw it out there and let's see what their response is. 2 weeks from now, we can come back and nothing may have been done.
We will learn probably in the next couple of days. So
could we pick a date right now while we're all together in case the manager cannot execute a contract to the terms that we just laid out? Could we pick a date where we could have a special
February
meeting
2nd.
to look at whatever
He sends it
happens?
to us as soon as he gets it.
I know.
I would just say have the manager contact us and let us know if it
But
is.
the point
or not
is,
possible.
Councilmember McCormick wants to set a date.
Notice.
To
notice it.
Well, not so much to notice, but so
Not
we're
even
all
to notice it.
just we're all on.
Yeah.
We all agree now that we're going to meet at a certain
So our
date.
clerk doesn't have to be calling you crazy everywhere.
We already have an executive session scheduled for Thursday the 4th. We can tack it on after that.
Fine, let's do that. Good call.
Question.
That works for
Yes.
me. Nice job, Ignacio.
Councilmember Kaplan.
I just don't see it as, Ignacio, as you're summarizing it. I think the last meeting, what Brett's motion just put forward was, in my mind, where we were the last meeting.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons that I think I'm a little bit dismayed is we should have had a contract come back. If there's something in the boilerplate, and I'll use insurance as an example, if they don't carry the insurance that our standard service agreement requires,
don't hire them.
And we don't waive it, given the nature of the scope of work that we're actually asking them to perform, or tailor it to the insurance that they do carry, then it's not a question of the scope of services. It's a question, we have a contractual impediment that we can't overcome unless we waive it or tailor it.
Absolutely.
So
we're in agreement.
So Chad.
So
given the nature of what we're asking them to do, this isn't like digging up the swale and laying conduit. This isn't property disruption. Where are we relative to their expectations on insurance, and is it overcomable?
Sure. And let me just give you the timeline again, just so you guys know. The staff received a draft on Friday. Juan received it, I think, Friday from them with their revised proposal with their comments on our agreement. Yesterday, Tom received it and reached out to them and negotiated, I guess, back and forth. This morning, he shot it over to me, and we had a call this morning with the manager. There are minimal things that are outstanding on this, two of which are insurance. I'll get to them in a second. The other ones, just so the council's aware, one is they're not registered to do business in the state of Florida. So
who cares?
That's a big one.
We really care.
No, the village has been on me about business licenses, so I'm just going to point out
that could be a problem.
No, that's a big issue. So, but they're in the process of registering. Okay, so we've notified them that. They had two other substantive comments. One was that if they delivered a report that and it wasn't correct, that we have in our standard agreement, they have to correct it in 2 years. And they wanted to waive that. And our response this morning was, well, some of these recruiters, they've had issues. I don't know if you recall, like Coral Gables and Marco Island, like their recruiters missed in the background checks certain things, and then they ended up doing a second background check for free. And they said, well, we wouldn't do a second one for free. And Chuck and I met this morning, and we said, no, that's not acceptable.
But they're not doing a first one for free. They're not doing any background check.
I'm just using
reference checks, whatever.
I'm just using that as an example, Frank.
But you're saying that if
they were to do go ahead.
I was just going to say, if they said that if they made a mistake, they would not come back and do a second one for free. Is what they're saying.
Correct.
Gee.
So that
are we using the right company?
So that was the first one. The second one was what Chuck alluded to before, which was that if we terminated them and we didn't accept their work, if the manager didn't accept their work product, we weren't going to pay them for what was done, which is a standard provision we have. They said that they've had, that they didn't like that provision. They wanted to tweak it. We said, look, we're not paying you if we don't think what you did was acceptable, period. That's our pushback. That was what we sent Tom back to them today to do. As far as the insurance, Frank, I had asked Tom to speak with Bob Hollander to address some of their concerns. I don't know if that happened or not. I know that Tom was busy. I'll pull up right now what their concerns were.
Pat, may I?
Sure. I'm sorry.
Again, I'm not gonna, because I'm the bad guy. I just don't think that all of you who are great employees get the urgency. Forget about the timeline, because we make the choices about digesting the information. But today I'm shocked that everybody involved, it's sort of nonchalant. Oh, we got a thing on Friday. I'm just from the school of just get it done. Well, 2 weeks ago we met. We gave you the guideline. You sometimes you all don't want us to micromanage, and this I think Kaplan said it right. What the motion that I'm supporting is exactly what we decided last time, and here we are 2 weeks later. That you guys are exchanging emails like it says we're selecting the most important decision of our tenure, and we are, running a little late, which is fine. But I just don't sense a sense of urgency from you. I'm sorry. I mean, so as we move forward from today, you just got to pick up the phone and call them and tell them, forget about lawyering this to death. Just get it done. You can't do it. You can't do it. We go to somewhere else.
Yeah, I'd like to get their service in-house now. These issues are not important to me. Yeah, I think they have to be qualified to transact business.
Right, but that's just from the point of view of staff. Let's just get it done. We get a lot of important things, but listen, each one of us have dropped a lot of other stuff in our agendas to do this. And yet I don't see that sense of intensity from staff. I'm sorry if if we're going to move forward constructively, you got to put this at the top of the priority, because it's the top of our priority. I mean, the dogs on the beach are important, but picking a manager is a lot more important.
I would say so.
So you want to put an amendment in the motion about how?
No, I think that's good.
Forward on that.
We all. We're not adding. The motion seconded. Let's go. Let's vote on the motion.
Let's go.
What's the motion?
Killing me over
the
there.
Motion is
restated and jerked around for a while.
You want me to state it, or you want Jocelyn?
Yeah, you state it.
All right. The motion is that we have selected Steve Williamson, Brian Lynch, Christopher Rose, Joseph Fernandez, and Thomas Bradford as our top 5. We are going to include interviews, inbox service, I think this was called, reference checks, and psychological assessments. Interviews for these company to do for not to exceed $6,000.
With me.
All right. That's the motion on the floor. It's been seconded. I've called the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Beautiful. All right. Councilmember Segarola, you had a final comment? We're going to get out of here.
No.
Okay.
I do want to make.
Adjourn.
I want to make one comment.
Wait a minute.
Sorry, excuse me. I'm sorry. I have a clarification question. Did you set a special council meeting for after the executive session on February 4th?
Not yet. No. If we need it, we will. If necessary.
If the manager tells us it's necessary.
Correct.
Thank you. And there is another item on the agenda before you adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I say one comment?
Yes, go ahead.
So that people know those top 5, the number of people, the number of votes, and I think Councilmember McCormick put it there, doesn't mean that, one can be more likely selected than the other.
Councilmember Loretta.
Because they're not weighted in any way. So I think all 5 have, equal chance still
Absolutely
to
fair.
be the selected person.
I apologize. The entry block. Councilmember Loretta brought that forward as well.
In the interest of time, I just would like to have a more in-depth discussion, but we can do it at the next meeting, guys, because I think this issue is important to a lot of us and a lot of citizens in the content of it, whether we should purchase it. for public use, either through purchasing and negotiating or eminent domain. I think we ought to have that discussion.
Yeah. I think we're going to have a little more time than.
Having some of those discussions already.
I think it's also.
He drops.
Would you call me when this is over?
He dropped an eminent domain bomb as we're walking out the door. All right, motion to adjourn.
Chuck, will you call me when this is over?
Second.
I will.